Welcome back in, Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show. Appreciate all of you hanging out with us. We're joined now by one of the stars of the Clay Travis, Buck Sexton Show podcast network. Mother of four, dominant podcasting star, as I said, Tudor Dixon, formerly the gubernatorial candidate in 2022 for the state of Michigan. I texted you as soon as I saw this news, which is probably way later than you saw the news because I'm not necessarily as plugged in on Michigan politics as you are. But Tudor, thanks for coming on. Right off the top, we got to ask you, open Senate seat. I know they tried to get you to run for the Senate this past cycle, but you had family concerns. You had just run in 22. Also, open governor seat. State of Michigan, I think, probably going to be the biggest battleground in 2026. Do you have interest in either, maybe both of those jobs right now? I'm sure people are coming after you, trying to get you to run for either the Senate or the governor again. When's the time frame? What's your thought process like on those jobs?
Well, yes, thank you for having me. I'm certainly looking at both of them right now. I think it's very interesting. You were actually one of the first people to text me. You were quick, so that was good. But I do think that it's very interesting to see Gary Peters on what day 8 of the Trump administration make the calculation that he can't run for the Senate again. And I think that has to be a situation where we step back and look at what people see as a battleground state of Michigan and say, okay, there is a real calculation on the Democrat side that this is not going to be a good year for them. And that means that we have many seats we can take in Michigan. We have congressional seats we can take. We have a U.S. Senate seat. We have the governor's seat. We have the attorney general. We have the secretary of state. All of these have to be a major calculation for not just Michigan, but the entire country should be looking, because you don't want another Gretchen Whitmer to be coming out of the state of Michigan and trying to end up somewhere in D.C. We already had Granholm do that. You certainly don't want a Katie Holmes situation where you have Jocelyn Benson becoming governor and then moving on. Michigan is a critical state. People from Michigan are always coveted in D.C. because we are a swing state, and therefore it is critical that everybody in the nation has their eyes on Michigan in this race, and we're watching all of these seats. And hey, folks, we need help. Help us out here. Let's send some money into Michigan and get these seats won for Republicans.
Hey, Tudor, it's Buck. Thanks for being with us, and congrats on all the success of your podcast and the podcast network. Why did Trump win Michigan? And I just think that's such an important question to have some of the details laid out for, because obviously that creates something of a template for Senate seat, governor's race, all these things we're talking about. So, but let's start with that. Why did Trump win? Why were the numbers so much better for him than a lot of the forecasters on the Democrat side, for sure, were saying?
There's so many dynamics in Michigan that made Michigan winnable in 24. Certainly, it was the EV mandates. That was just crushing people in the state. It was crushing the auto workers. The auto workers were feeling like the Democrats were telling them, we own you, you have to vote for us, but their jobs were being lost in the state of Michigan. Since 2000, we've lost 150,000 auto jobs in the state of Michigan. So people were feeling the crunch there, and they knew the EV mandates were crushing us and that Donald Trump was going to get rid of them. We also had this situation where our Arab American community feels very much like they have been abandoned, that their family values have been abandoned by the Democrats. And they were suddenly saying, wow, when we hear what Republicans are saying, we identify with that. And in the past, we haven't come together, but we really did. And we have an amazing community in our Arab American community here in the state of Michigan. And then over and above that, it's just public safety. This idea that we had a woman who was murdered in Grand Rapids right before the election really started to take off by an illegal alien. And people in Michigan were saying, why is it bad to say that we should actually have an immigration system that works, that we can't just let all the bad guys in? And I really believe that Gary Peters went into the Senate, he voted against the Laken Riley Act, and then he suddenly had this realization that this is not the Democrats' America anymore. It's not this radical leftist zone, that the Americans have decided they're going to take back America First values. And that is what won Michigan and what will win Michigan in 26.
All right, Tudor, you dodged my question as you are very adept at doing here. You didn't give us a time frame, but I want to go back into what Buck said as part of building on this a bit. I believe, you correct me if I'm wrong, the Senate seat in Michigan was decided by 19,000 votes. I think it was the closest Republican loss in the entire country. And then Trump won Michigan by 80,000 votes. I think my math is roughly right there. So if I'm correct, that's 100,000 vote difference, right? That Trump was able to get versus the Senate candidate losing. What's the time frame? And do you think Trump and saying, "Hey, this is my guy, this is my gal," can get in conjunction with running the right campaign, Michigan back the governor's and/or the Senate seat, which would be huge for the nation?
Absolutely. I mean, the time frame is that's going to have to be a calculation over the next few weeks. I think as we see what the other side is doing, people are going to want to look at polling. There's going to be a lot of different calculations that go into when people decide to announce. But honestly, I believe that it's not just essential that we have Donald Trump come in and support us in our state. I'm just going to be really honest here. You need a candidate that loves Donald Trump, that is going to bear hug Donald Trump. And that's been our problem in the past in the state of Michigan. We have people that try to run parallel to him. They arrive at the rallies, but they don't talk about him. They are not for America First values, and they're shying away from him. We need people who have never shied away from Donald Trump, who understand that Donald Trump is the leader of the Republican Party, and people like what he's doing, and that is what we want to emulate in the state of Michigan, and that is who we want to send to Washington, D.C. to make sure they enact Donald Trump's agenda. And I believe that there's going to be a huge push from the folks in D.C. to say, we want that Senate seat. We have to make sure that we win the Senate back for Donald Trump in the midterms. This is a huge opportunity to take a seat away from the Democrats, and this has to be someone who is fully on board with the president's agenda.
Mayor Pete Buttigieg, whose name I probably still screw up, has moved to Traverse City, Michigan from South Bend, Indiana, where he was the mayor. What is the talk, because I'm already seeing it, that this is already being teed up for him to either run for governor or potentially the Senate? Is there discussion about that? Because I think it's important to not only think about who the Republicans put forward, but also who the Democrats are going to try to put forward, because they think he's the future of the party. Is there much discussion about that so far as you have heard?
Well, yeah, there's already been articles that have come out saying that he is strongly considering a run for the Senate. And I think that's the best news that we could possibly hear, a complete failure on every front. I mean, the guy has been a disaster in transportation, that we couldn't have seen more of a problem across the board when it comes to transportation secretary than Mayor Pete. I think he would be a fabulous guy to run against. His principles are totally radical, completely out of line with Michigan principles. He's a guy that just moved in the state, but's never really lived here, because let's face it, the minute he stepped foot in the state of Michigan, he went to Washington, D.C. He knows nothing about Michiganders. He knows nothing about our state. I welcome him to run because I think he is easily beaten, and then he's done. We can just finish his political career and say goodbye to old Mayor Pete, the failure.
What are the top things that you want to see President Trump pursuing in the months ahead? I mean, months sounds like forever in Trump world, right? So much has been done just in the first 72 hours and continuing up to the present. But what would you like to see Trump focus in on as it pertains particularly to your home state, Tudor?
I really want to see manufacturing come back, and I like what he's been able to do. I mean, I look at what he was able to do in 2016 when he went in and, and we saw him immediately put these tariffs on. I was in the steel industry at that point, so I was selling tool and die steel. Our steel mill, just the orders went through the roof. I mean, we were tripling orders in the district that I was in selling tool and die steel. That was amazing. This was a situation where the steel mill was saying, we're order to order. We're trying to figure out how to get from here to there. We don't have that. One of the big business opportunities for them at that time was frac blocks. And suddenly the frac blocks, which was a huge bread and butter kind of business. They just went through the roof with Donald Trump because he protected that industry. And that's what I see being the key for the state of Michigan. Protect our auto industry. You see these, I mean, gosh, we've got, well, suddenly we're going to have flying bicycles and all of these electric vehicles coming in from China. No, Donald Trump has made it clear he will not let Chinese vehicles come in and compete with American vehicles. And that has got to stay. I mean, we have so many weak leaders on the Democrat side. We had a deal in the state of Michigan where GM was going to have to stay in the state of Michigan with their headquarters based on the tax credits and the money that we were giving them. And Gretchen Whitmer said, you know what, I'm going to wipe that out of the deal. It has almost crushed the state of Michigan. We need true leaders that understand negotiations, and for the state of Michigan will make sure that China does not rob us of our automotive industry or manufacturing in general.
Tudor, we're going to have your back whenever you make a decision. We'll have you back on. And if you're running, we're going to have you on a ton on this show. But either way, people need to go subscribe to the Tudor Dixon podcast. Tell them what they will find if they go subscribe and start checking out your show.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, tomorrow you are going to hear a really awesome story about the history of the Anheuser-Busch family. I mean, it's like a drama, but I talked to Billy Bush, and he is just awesome and amazing. And you don't want to miss it. But last week we had the history of the mob and one of the most notorious mobsters. But we talk politics. We talk everything. You got to check it out. And I just want to say thank you to both you and Buck, because you guys are amazing and you're the best friends that someone can have. So thank you so much for having me on today.
Awesome. Well, keep it up. We're proud of you killing it on the show, and we'll hopefully be able to talk about more things that you're going to be killing it at in the future. Thanks for the time today.
Thank you.
That's Tudor Dixon. I'm just going to put it on the record. Buck, I think if she is the Senate nominee, she will win. I also think if she is the gubernatorial nominee, she will win. She's got 4 young kids. She's got to make decisions about what's best for she and her family. But I know that they came after her hard to run in 2024 for the Senate. Just wasn't the right time. Came down to 19,000 votes in Michigan. I know that we have a huge Michigander population. This is going to be the state to watch in 2026. I'm telling you, it is going to be the focal point. And you know what else is in Michigan, Buck? Hillsdale College, which is a fabulous supporter of this program. And one of the things I love about it is they have a shared love of learning that you and I and Buck and many of all of us are all committed to. And maybe, just maybe, you didn't study as much as you should have in college. Maybe you had to go straight to work and you never got the opportunity to take the college courses that you would have liked to. They've got 40 free online video courses that you can go sign up for on your own time without grades to just try to learn more about our nation's history. And one of the most popular is Constitution 101 that tells all about the Constitution. What do you need to know? No tests, no homework, just learning at your pace. Courses are highly produced, fun, engaging. I'm telling you, these are not just stuffy lectures. Easy to get started. To register, go to clayandbuck4hillsdale.com. That's clayandbuck, F-O-R, Hillsdale.com. One more time, clayandbuck4hillsdale.com.